Let's podcast alongside Joe Giglio. I'm Joe Ovias inside Eford Studios, downtown Raleigh. Thanks to Empire Properties and thanks to Copiers Plus. Check them out online at Why are you having a Capri Sun?
Need a little sugar pop after we're podcasting for the second time in 9 hours.
Well, that was your idea.
It was.
That was some ASMR right there.
Was it?
It's like, whoa, okay. I'm just saying, that's fine. Drink the rest of your Capri Sun. Also impressed that you actually got the Capri Sun straw through the top as intended and not through the bottom.
Yeah.
I prefer from the back.
Are you spastic when it comes to the straw?
I just like putting the straw in the back. Anyway, check out Copiers Plus. Check them out online, copiers-plus.com. You got your system.
The Garner World Headquarters are now fully functional.
Let's go.
Thanks to Drew and Jerome. I could print from my phone.
Whoa!
You should have seen me yesterday. Drew was like, hey, what is like your Wi-Fi password? I'm like, I don't know, Drew. I'm like, maybe we could share it. Like, can I hit like the button where it like, it shares?
Your level of weaponized incompetence amazes me.
So
amazes me.
He printed a picture from his phone. We printed our contract, which was basically like, hey, this is part of our deal with you. You're not going to like open up your own sports book and start printing out tickets and receipts.
Are you sure?
Yes.
Okay.
So, do yourself a favor. Go to copiers-plus.com. You want to print from your phone at home? I got it. Got you.
How do you not even know your own Wi-Fi password?
Oh, it's super complicated.
You can change it, right?
I understand that. I haven't.
Okay.
I saw the big company that runs the world is in our neighborhood now, and I was considering switching to the big company that runs the world since they're in our neighborhood. Since I don't dislike the current situation with a lettered company.
Yeah.
But it's not like I'm spoiled by what we have here. With the Ethernet.
Yeah, we got the hardwire, which is we can't do this without the hardwire. Let's just put it that way. Just like North Carolina wasn't going to do this in conference play. They weren't going to go undefeated in conference play, Joe. They just weren't. They weren't. Now,
I did not have this on the bingo card, even though Atlanta is Carolina's kryptonite. I did not have this on the bingo card.
This is one of those things where you don't go into the game thinking they're going to lose, but when they do lose and you start putting things into context, you go, oh, yeah, that makes a heck of a lot of sense. Our friend Brian Ives over at ESPN pointing out that North Carolina is 10-20 in its last 30 combined football and men's basketball games at Georgia Tech. The Tar Heels and Atlanta do not get along. Our friend Brian Barber, the old Tar Heel blog maven himself, pointed out that you want to know how weird it gets in Atlanta? Roy Williams was 1-5 versus Paul Hewitt there. The win was by a point in 08 versus a Georgia Tech team that finished 50-17. The 11 team lost there by 20 to a 13-18 team. And then as I'm thinking about all these things that had happened over time, I'm like, didn't they get stuck in Atlanta one time in an ice storm like that? Walk 6 blocks? Yes, it was 10 years ago in 2014, January 29th, 2014.
There's also a buzzer in my head right now that Colton Tudor's pressing.
Yeah.
Where is Toot?
He's to your left or to your right, I guess.
There he is.
Yeah, there's Toot.
Maybe, arguably, Dean Smith's best team. 84. Michael Jordan's last year.
Yeah.
Kenny Smith running hot, gets injured. They won every game. They won every game in the ACC. Do you know how hard the ACC was in 1984?
Mm-hmm.
And they went unbeaten in the ACC in 1984.
Yeah.
Like, that's ridiculous what they did, what they pulled off.
But Joe, I'm here to tell you.
But Dan Dockich shut Michael Jordan down in the Omni in Atlanta. Michael Jordan's last game, arguably Dean Smith's greatest team, lost in the Sweet 16 to Indiana, and Dan Dockich was solely responsible. And, he played golf with Michael Jordan a couple of years later, and he still owes me money. Okay, Dan, cool.
Look, we all have our go-to stories, Joe. We all have.
We do.
We all. That's what we do.
We do.
That's what we do. We have.
I had to point that one out though because I feel like that's the genesis.
It may be
of the Atlanta.
Maybe
curse
it is
for the Tar Heels.
Maybe it is. I really don't know. There's a couple of things that are going on here. There's the Atlanta thing. Now you got me thinking about Dan Dockich. I actually saw him. He went viral last week because he had some tired take about Taylor Swift, and I saw a screen grab of his studio setup. You know, the most surprising thing to me about Dan Dockett, and I'm sure he searches his own name, so maybe he actually has a.
How's he going to find it on?
I bet you he has developed an AI protocol that searches audio for his name. So I might be hearing from
That's
him.
effort.
He might block me. Like Kevin Keats has blocked a lot of State fans. Regardless, we talked about that on Law of the Wolf last night. I was shocked that Dockich did not have a framed
of that game
photo
or the box score
or something from that game where he was locking down Michael Jordan. Okay. All right. So UNC and Atlanta, they don't get along. I think we all recognize that. North Carolina fans know it's a house of horrors. But here's where I'm going to tell you, Joe. Sometimes, I
have the sounder. Can we use it?
What's the sounder?
You keep talking and I'll find it.
Well, I'm going to put on my old timey press hat. I got the little card sitting in my hat. I just phoned in the gamer on a telephone booth, like, you know, the scrappy young Georgia Tech Yellow Jackets, led by Damon Stoudemire, beat the mighty Tar Heels. But I'm here to tell you my old timey columnist way.
You want the sounder first, or
give me
you
the
want to
sounder.
give it a lead?
Give me the sounder.
Sometimes when you win, you really lose, and sometimes when you lose, you really win.
Ding, 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 ding. Sometimes when you lose, you really win. And Joe, I'm here to tell you that this was the perfect time to drop your first conference game ahead of the rivalry. Hosting Duke Saturday at the Smith Center, they needed this reset. Hubert Davis can now go to this team, point out what they've been doing wrong, and they're going to go in hungry. Reset them.
What do you think they really did wrong in this game?
They didn't hit free throws. It's as simple as that.
Okay.
I don't want to oversimplify things. Actually, there are two big takeaways. My two big takeaways from last night. Foul on RJ Davis aside, whether you think it's a foul or not. But you know, Joe, and Brad Brownell will be the first one to tell you.
That was weird.
You get caught up in the emotion of being in the Thriller Dome.
That was weird.
You know, Georgia Tech always gets those calls in the Thriller
The
Dome.
home team got a call.
Weird, huh?
It was odd.
Weird.
To me. I think
I
think you can really reduce this to Nathan George made a circus shot, a very difficult shot.
Yes.
And RJ Davis did not make a very difficult shot. If Davis' shot goes in, we talk about the grit and all this stuff for them hanging in there and finding a way to win.
Can I be nitpicky?
Yeah.
Okay. Let's be nitpicky here. I want people to understand I'm just being nitpicky. Nitpick number one, free throws. Make your
9 to 17.
Make your damn free throws. You likely win that game. Don't shoot 50% from the line. You got to the line. Don't shoot 50%. That's why RJ Davis got fouled. Yeah, because they've been hitting free throws all day. Come on now. So that's issue number one. Issue number two, RJ Davis. What are you trying to accomplish here? Are you actually trying to make a shot, or are you trying to draw contact? The way I've seen that replay a bunch of times, it's pretty clear that RJ Davis was trying to draw contact and get to the line rather than
trying to pull a Proctor there.
Dude, make a shot, make a play. That's my only beef. And I get that. These are things that it's a mindset. You're trying to win games. I get all that stuff. But my last nitpick is Hubert Davis should not have called a timeout before, where they ended up setting up a play.
We are very used to Roy Williams letting his team play in that situation.
Yeah, and I've said this about John Shire. I can't treat John Shire like he's Mike Krzyzewski. We cannot treat Hubert Davis like he's Roy Williams. But I have to unspool my brain of watching UNC and like, whoa, why'd you stop play? Because RJ had the ball in that situation. Why'd you stop play? That's a classic Roy Williams. Don't call a timeout. Although I guess Roy had there was a level of time that he would call a timeout, but I'm pretty sure it wasn't at that point for a Roy Williams timeout.
For Roy, it would depend on who had the ball and what the situation looked like. He felt comfortable, famously, with Theo Pinson bringing the ball down and kicking it to Luke May, of all people, and banging that shot against Kentucky that he did. I mean, the thing that Roy always said to me, and anybody would ask him, this is what we do in practice.
Yeah.
Like, we prepare for this. So there's nothing I'm going to do that's going to make, and Roy was never wanting to put on the show. I always said to him, the reason why people think you can't coach is because you don't put on a show. You're not over there calling out the plays. You're not like horns. And he's like, I don't need to do that.
He's not Archie Miller literally on the 3-point line playing defense. like we saw earlier this year, right?
Please.
I know.
Don't start with the buttons.
So now that I'm done with the nitpicking, it's fine. North Carolina wasn't going to go undefeated in conference play. In fact, they're just doing what a lot of other top 10 teams have been doing this year. Going into last night's, there were 2 top 10 teams that lost last night. Tennessee lost to South Carolina. Going into last night's contest, 53 losses by top 10 teams. And on the road top 10 teams versus unranked opponents, 23 and 29. So this is just kind of, this is the nature of college basketball.
What does that tell you? Like, I often tell you, what is the difference between teams 4 through 124?
Yeah.
I don't think there's a big one.
There's not. This is a way to transition from North Carolina to NC State because Damon Stoudemire, who I like, we talked to Damon Stoudemire at ACC tip-off. He's a great, he's a great interview.
He was kind of like, oh, you two. I mean, okay, cool.
We'll chat. And this is a team.
Our guy Moose was like, no, they're good. They'll bring you pizza in Raleigh.
Okay, cool. So Georgia Tech doesn't have a good schedule or doesn't have a good record. We're going to talk to Patrick Stevens about that a little bit later on because there is some irony in the ACC needing quality wins. It just so happens that the wrong team is getting the quality wins. This is now 2 for Georgia Tech, which gets us to this Jeff Borzello cursed tweet from ESPN. Damon Stoudemire is just the 3rd first-year ACC coach in the last 30 seasons to beat Duke and North Carolina in his debut campaign. Per stats and information, ESPN. The other 2 were Sidney Lowe and Kevin Keats.
Absolutely.
Got to make shots, UNC. Got to make shots. That I was not expecting those 2 names.
Well, Sid's first year was 2007. That was a little bit of a lull year for Duke.
It was.
Gerald Henderson, the point forward kid, the white kid, I can't remember his name, the number 1 recruit in the country who was just okay. State beat him in Tampa in the NCAA in the ACC tournament, and then they beat Sid with the red jacket. They had the Anganatzer game over in the Courtney Fells game over in Raleigh.
Yeah,
it was the only time he beat Carolina. So that team didn't make the NCAA tournament. Obviously, Kevin's team first year they go to Chapel Hill. We had the kid from the transfer from Baylor, Al, the shooter.
Oh, I can't remember.
He had a great game. And Torrin Dorn had a great game. They kind of offset the usual Luke May unbelievable game.
Al Freeman?
Freeman.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So they win that game. They beat Duke at home. They make the tournament. That's usually the thread there. Is that if you beat those two teams,
but one guy got fired and the other guy people want fired.
Sure.
So Damon Stoudemire, that's interesting company that I'm keeping here right now. I don't know about that. If you want a much more in-depth conversation about NC State Miami last night, we did a Law of the Wolf After Dark.
Law of the Wolf live.
So we did that last night, but to kind of summarize our thoughts on last night, you give State a lot of credit for taking advantage of a Miami team that is going through it. It's a lot. They have not had a consistent lineup throughout the year. Yeah. They have had some missed opportunities. It doesn't look like they're going to make the NCAA tournament. It was another quad 2 opportunity.
Why are we so down on Miami?
I'm down on Miami. They just, much like NC State, you're looking for good wins.
Sure.
And Miami doesn't really have that.
They have better wins out of the league than State does, for sure.
They do. But for NC State, it was another at-home Q2 opportunity to keep with NC State not having any terrible losses, but also not having any great wins of note. That's the problem for NC State.
I think they needed to beat Miami because they'll be in a group with Miami. But I think ultimately this was about responding to their effort against Syracuse. Flat out. Their effort in the first half against Syracuse is not good enough.
Yeah, they came out.
End of story.
They came out with a much better first half. There's always some limitation that NC State has. Rebounding continues to be one of them. That's what kept Miami in that game. Offensive rebounding.
Chewed up on the offensive glass. Miami ends up with 20 offensive rebounds in this game. Norchad O'Meara in particular was a handful. I'll say this for State because it was a Roy Williams kind of night for them too. Everything looks better when the ball goes in the basket. Casey Morsell in particular hitting 3 threes, scoring 17 points. It's been a little bit of a slog for Casey this year, his 5th year.
Yeah.
Last year, he had 2 really good guards that opened up the floor and occupied defenders and allowed him to spot up and shoot. has not had that luxury this year. And yep, it's January, but he has to figure out that this isn't last year anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And this is how I can help the team win. I thought about 8 minutes left, Miami had cut the thing down, and it was a tie game, and he banged a 3, and I was like, okay, State's probably going to win this game as long as something silly doesn't happen. And DJ Horne ends up with 24 points, showing you that he is the bus driver. I think that's a little bit of a for better or worse situation with DJ Horne, because he's not a great shooter. I do think he is a great competitor, but he's not a great shooter. And he was hitting some shots. He hit some shots early, especially, that I thought, there's a little bit of fool's gold here. You can't rely on a lot of these.
Perhaps.
But he ends up with 24 points. And I also thought that Modiara, who didn't play in the first 16 minutes of this game, I thought he came in and he added something, particularly in the second half when DJ Burns was neutralized. It's a tough game for DJ Burns to play in, because Miami and Jim Larinaga are going to scheme that thing up and make sure that his weaknesses are exposed. So, but good for State, good for Kevin Keats. And now you got to keep going, though.
Yeah.
And just as you can't throw the season away out in the middle, you can't dump the Gatorade. You got to play the games out, see where everything ends up when you get to the end, and see how it all sorts out. The problem for the ACC right now, as when we talk to Patrick, you got Wake, State, Virginia, Syracuse, Virginia Tech, Florida State, Miami, Clemson.
Mm-hmm.
Those are the teams that need to beat Carolina and Duke or go to or win on the road, right? Right now, you have Pitt with a win over Duke at Duke, and you have Georgia Tech with a sweep of Carolina and Duke.
I'll be curious to see what Georgia Tech looks like on Saturday when they come to PNC Arena.
I mean, that's a State. That's on a plate for State.
And how NC State responds to bouncing back. Because part of the
State shouldn't be happy. State should be hungry.
That's the thing. Because the last time we saw Kevin Keats in a good mood, he was pounding the table, talking about respect. People aren't talking about us, tired of this shit. And then they go on a 3-game losing streak for a variety of reasons, which we covered over multiple podcasts over 11 days. He was in a good mood last night.
Yeah.
He's having fun. And that's great. I love when Kevin Keats is in a good mood. But that doesn't mean that everything's all good now. You got to build on top of this. Yes, I can see Georgia Tech having the Carolina win hangover on Saturday, but it's going to be another sleepy time at PNC Arena, like it was sleepy last night. 9:00 game on a Tuesday against a team that doesn't necessarily bring people, except my dad and my mom, to go watch the Hurricanes. My dad, by the way, not wearing any Miami gear last night.
Then I'm like Michael Jordan now. I'm going to take that personal.
Had he knew I was going to be there. Why didn't he wear the home field jacket? Why didn't he do it?
Maybe I'll get him a cat calendar. Maybe I'll get him a Cardinals calendar. This is the key, my new key. You got to lower the expectations when it comes to gift giving to the OVS family.
I'll tell you what, we're just going to do the home field spot right now. Check them out, homefieldapparel.com. You can get sweet satin jackets that my dad doesn't wear, but you can wear them. I think you saw one of the State Bombers last night, right?
I did. I'm contemplating getting a Gonzaga one.
Okay.
My Zags.
I dig it.
Yeah.
I dig it. Homefieldapparel.com. Go check them out.
Keep me warm when I turn my light their bracket on fire. I'll have the jacket as well to keep me warm.
Use the promo code OG23 to save 15% off your order.
Housekeeping.
Let's get into a little bit of housekeeping, which is brought to you by Enovana. Check them out online, enovana.com. That's ENOVANA.com. Green cleaning. This is housekeeping, house cleaning services. Time is money, Joe. Time is money. We talk about saving money a bunch of times, but now it's time to save you time.
Save you some time, save you some effort.
Yes.
You want your house to be clean. Man, Enovana local.
Mm-hmm.
This is not, they're to come in. They're going to do all the things, that you don't want to do. And guess what? They're going to do it better than you anyway. Now there's a combo.
There's a combo, because when I clean the bathroom, it's like, that's good enough. That's good enough.
No, not for them.
Not them. So again, check them out online, enovana.com.
And they pass the website test.
They do. Super simple. And paying is super simple. You can do a one-time cleaning. You can set up a scheduled service. You can do it automatically. All sorts of ways to do this. We thank them for sponsoring Ovies and Giglio.
Let me also help you out in a little bit here, because I'm going to get a text later. So you know. So you mark the tape right now.
Yeah.
Hey, it'll be like the time when someone's like, hey, what's the name of that ride share that you guys work with?
Yeah.
Sleek Fleet. Hey, what's the name of that cleaning company you work with? Enovana. So go check them out, enovana.com.
Speaking of houses, maybe you need to buy a house. Maybe you need to sell a house. My HTR, Hometown Realty, can help you out. Buy, sell, calculate. New construction is where it's at. Interest rates have come down. That's got people buzzing. Hometown Realty can help you out on that.
I come from south of Raleigh, from Garner, down 401, all of that new construction. Barry Woodard's crew, they're there to help you get those deals, get the best incentives from those buyers, and get ahead of the frenzy. So go check them out at myhtr.com.
And did you just buy that house? Did you just refinance? Do you need to take it to closing? Whitaker and Hamer. Contact them. WH.lawyer. Did you get pulled over by a police officer on a horse? I don't know. I don't know what you got going on.
Maybe I shouldn't admit this. I made a left on red last night.
Joe.
Getting into Fayetteville because I was like,
don't do it.
Joe's mad at me because I actually stayed to figure out what was going on in the basketball game.
I wasn't mad at you. I was just asking where you were.
I didn't know what was going on. So I told you I was flustered.
I know. I told you we were doing, we both agreed that we were doing the show back here in the studio.
I understand that, but I was flustered. And then,
Why were you flustered?
Is there a statute of limitations on left on red? I mean, there was nobody on the road.
Oh, yeah, you're fine. I thought you said left on red. I'm like, I didn't leave you on red.
No. No, I was on.
I saw your text. What are you talking about?
I was on Dawson, I guess.
Oh, yeah, you're fine.
And I'm like, it's like the middle of the night. And
Dude,
I'm like, I got to turn left.
You're fine.
Joe's going to be mad at me if I didn't get over here.
Nah, you're fine. You're fine.
But you know what? You can handle those things. Whitaker and Hamer, WH.lawyer. Come see us on Sunday at Shady's 2, downtown Garner. We'll have the Super Tecmo fired up. We got beer, bourbon, and baked ziti.
Joining us on the Heister Automotive Group hotline from the Washington Post, he is our bracketology expert and bobblehead connoisseur. He is Patrick Stevens. What's up, man?
Fellas, how you doing?
Do we have a bobblehead of the week?
There's a bunch of them back here, right?
Come on, we got to make this happen. We got to do a bobblehead of the week, Patrick. How many bobbleheads do you have?
Too many, probably. I'm not sure I really want to admit to the actual number, but it is in 3 figures. I'll give you that.
All right, so you can't tease us with Joe Boo and then not bring Joe Boo out and tell us the Joe Boo story.
You've got a bobblehead of major leagues.
There we go.
Joe Boo, come on, man.
Now, what team is Joe Boo filed under in the Patrick Stevens decimal system?
First of all, I just want you to know that my sister loved being told that there was somebody referring to a Patrick Stevens Dewey Decimal System.
Yes.
Thought that was brilliant. And this is she's somebody that for Christmas got me a little sign that said, "Don't worry, I have a spreadsheet for that."
Yes.
So anyway,
you do, which we will bring up here in a second.
Which we do. But anyway, Joe Boo was a giveaway with the Lake County Captains, which is a minor league team in the Cleveland suburbs. And get this, Joe. The guy who threw out the first pitch that night was the guy who Chelsea Ross, the actor who played the aging pitcher in
not Joe
Major
Boo.
League. Yeah. Not actually Joe Boo.
Not the State Farm guy or Allstate or whatever.
Not Dennis Haysbert.
Oh. Yes, Dennis Haysbert, who I famously remember
24.
as he's the president.
Yeah,
come on, man. He's the president 24. All right. So let's talk about the matters of last night and the ACC. And I don't want to get into the trolling business of 2-bit ACC. However, Gilio and I were joking about this before we started recording today.
There's 3 valuable wins right now in the league.
Right. It's like North Carolina and Duke are the teams that squads like NC State needs to beat, right? Wake Forest,
Virginia. Yeah.
That they need those if they really want to solidify their NCAA tournament positioning. No offense to Georgia Tech, but baby, you ain't it. Okay, great win last night, both over North Carolina and Duke earlier. But no, honey, no, not you.
Yeah, the fact that there's only 3 of those floating around right now in the ACC, and Georgia Tech owns 2 of them, is a matter of it's just simply inexplicable. But great for the Yellow Jackets to get those victories, right? And they're certainly a lot better than they were the first week or so of the season. So credit to Damon Stoudemire for getting them, moving along in year 1 with a bunch of new pieces. But they're not a team that's anywhere close to the NCAA tournament discussion at this point. The fact that Pitt has the other one isn't really helping a whole lot either. So But at least Pitt's somewhere in the conversation, 20 spots off the edge of the field.
It's January 31st. And again, to remind people, we'll do bracketology once a week with Patrick Stevens. You can find his work at the Washington Post. You can find him on the Twitters. It's Discourse. Replace the I with a 1. Right now, we always go by a snapshot. You're not projecting. You're not saying, okay, if Wake Forest wins every game the rest of the way, they're going to be the number 1 seed. Like you're actually giving us a snapshot of what the field of 68 would be today if the bracket was unveiled today. On January 31st, how many ACC teams are in the NCAA tournament?
I think it's pretty much 4 at this
4.
point.
Okay.
I think it's 4. I think Clemson is still safely inside the field and has more room to maneuver than maybe a bunch of those other teams beyond the Duke Carolina group. And I have Wake Forest on the right side of things. And I know you guys subscribe to this, but there aren't going to be 62 teams in the field come March 17th. There's not going to be 65. There's going to be 68. And you got to find somebody to fill out the field.
Yep.
And so, the phrase I like to use over the years is, nothing exists in a vacuum. So you can sit there and say, oh, this team's terrible. Well, if they're one of the 36 best at-large teams in the estimation of the committee, then they're going to be in the field. And they're not going to take like 32 at-larges or 33 at-larges. It's going to be a full 36.
Where do you fall on Virginia? I feel like that's the one that feels like they're going to be, 14-6, 15-5, and we're going to go, well, what do you think of Virginia?
Well, if we're talking about an eventual 14-5 Virginia, then we're talking about a team that's probably somewhere in that 7 to 10 seed range, and you really don't have anything to worry about. At the moment,
you're saying give it some time for the Wahoos.
Give it some time for the Wahoos, okay. But for the moment, I would argue that that's a team that's probably right at the edge of the field, just on the outside. They do have to account for the Notre Dame loss, and when you look at what exactly they've accomplished, like they have a couple victories over borderline NCAA tournament teams like Texas A&M and Florida, and obviously a collection of victories over ACC teams that are borderline NCAA tournament teams. But for the most part, they're just kind of they're bobbing along a little bit like Wake is, and they have a loss to Wake Forest. So I feel like they're just on the outside. But the thing is that unless you get a scenario where you have a bunch of teams, let's say 3 through 9 in the ACC are all bunched together at 11-9 and 10-10, paired with the non-conference resumes that they have, then you're bound likely to end up with a couple teams around 14-6 or 13-7, and it kind of solves the problem and the discussion for you. And you'll look back and say, why was everybody up in arms on January 31st over this, when it was kind of trucking along to that sort of thing, no matter what, where you had, a couple teams that were in that 7, 8, 9, 10 seed range, maybe a little bit lower, but still in the field.
All right, let's look at the spreadsheet that you have for us, because you have a spreadsheet for everything.
Yeah, you mentioned the Notre Dame loss, and I'm like, what do you mean they have to contend with the Notre Dame loss? That's a Q4?
That's a Q3. They lost that one on the road.
Okay.
But it's still something that stands out on the team sheet. So,
all right. So what am I looking at here? If you're watching on YouTube, Patrick has this Excel spreadsheet that he sent to us with quad 1, quad 2, quad 3, quad 4. What am I looking at here?
Okay. So this is every possible game that you'll see in the ACC between now and the end of the regular season. And these numbers are going to change. The number next to each team is its net ranking. And so all the games that are in the quad 1, either Carolina game, either Duke game, and a bunch of road games, are all games that currently would be quad 1 games. So, and then quad 2 and quad 3 and quad 4 and so on. So there's only 2 real poison pills, games that you have absolutely zero to gain and a whole lot to lose. And then you've got a bunch of games, there's 7 of them that are in the quad 3 column. But 70% of them are in quad 1 and quad 2.
Yeah. Now, I remember saying this discourse last year as it relates to quad 1 and quad 2. And it's an entirely arbitrary concept that the NCAA has pigeonholed us in when it comes to these conversations. But the theory being that quad 2 games are actually more difficult than quad 1 games. How do you feel about that?
I don't know if they necessarily are or not. There is certainly something to be said for you're on the spot to beat some of these teams that are comparable to you when they come to your place.
Yeah.
And you are on the spot to win games against some feisty teams. Think Florida State, which got off to a slow start, or Boston College this year. The other thing to remember about this is that it is fluid. So you look and see some of those quad 3 games at the moment, like Syracuse at 77, NC State at 80, Florida State 87, Boston College 89.
It's completely
those games are a 3-game winning streak away from being in quad 2, maybe even a 2-game winning streak.
Sure. Okay, that makes sense. I just, one of those things that's been popping around, and this obsession with quad 1. It's like, let's not forget that quad 2s are valuable as well for all those reasons that you just laid out.
And like if you're, for example, let's say you're NC State and you're going to play Virginia Tech, or you're talking about, let's take the Syracuse Wake Forest game this week. You can lose a game if you're Wake Forest, but that team improves and suddenly it's not as harmful as it otherwise would have been. So all this stuff is far from permanent at this point.
All right, time's up. Your alarm went off, Patrick, so we're going to let you go.
Now you know what time my alarm goes off every day.
Normally, is that your normal alarm?
Your normal alarm?
That's the normal alarm. I'm usually up a little before that. That's to make sure that I'm actually up to feed the cats.
Okay. Wait a minute. The cats are the alarm, Patrick.
Mine actually are pretty good.
Okay.
See?
Look, man, if I don't feed one of my cats on time, that thing, she's peeing. She's peeing on something. So all I know is that I got to get that thing fed before a certain time. So good on you, Patrick. Good on you.
Next week, a new page on the cat calendar too, Patrick. Get
Very excited about this. Very excited about a new month of the cat calendar.
Very nice.
All right, man. We'll talk to you later.
Awesome. Take care.
I love that Patrick puts up with our nonsense. And I love that Matt Davis, State Farm, puts up with our nonsense as well. He can put up with your needs. You got questions? Does this need to be insured? How does this get handled? What about this? How do I save money? He's a real person in Garner. You can call directly at 919-779-8277 and start saving money on your insurance, Joe.
Yeah, do what Troy did. Our one of our best, our gold star listener called Matt, went to the OGinsurance.com, saved more than 40% on his insurance needs. I can't promise you that much of a savings, but I can promise you Matt will have a conversation with you, and I can promise you'll figure out ways to save.
Also, big thanks to Breeze Through for sponsoring Ovia's and Gilio. And shout out to our listeners who follow through on things they say they're going to do. We talked about App State, and we had a listener who said that if you talked about App State basketball, we will absolutely go and get coffee at the Breeze Through. And that's exactly what Kyle did. A deal is a deal. #GoApp. Look at him with his Breeze Through coffee, Joe. He's very excited about this. Let me see if I can.
And he's repping.
Here I am. Breeze Through. Got the coffee. Got my Mountaineers gear. Big shout out. Basketball team, best basketball team in the state.
Ooh.
Joe's. This one's for you.
We will talk to the head coach, Austin Kerns, who is, I guess, coaching the best team in the state, according to Kyle, a little bit later on. So go check out Breeze Through. Great coffee, obviously gas, and other great things. We appreciate them. All right, from men's hoops and the NCAA tournament to women's hoops and a big rivalry game on Thursday between NC State and North Carolina. We got Mitchell Northrum. He's with NPR and USA Today's For the Win. Mitch, what's going on, man?
Not much. Thanks for having me. We got a big game this week.
We do. So before we get into the rivalry dynamics and Wes Moore, NC State's coach, and Courtney Banger, North Carolina's coach, being in on the PR, if you will, what's the snapshot of the Wolfpack and North Carolina right now going into this game?
Yeah, I'll start with NC State first. When I saw this NC State team early in the season, the first thing I noticed were the vibes and the body language. This was a team that looked like it was having fun playing together and was legitimately enjoying playing with each other. I don't think you could have said that about them last season. I think while Diamond Johnson is an incredibly talented player and she's putting up numbers at Norfolk State now, I thought she kind of prevented NC State from playing how they should have last season and how they are playing this season. I think this is a team when they're at their best, they're running and they're getting up and down the floor and they have all these interchangeable parts. With Diamond, the ball kind of stopped and you sort of had everybody kind of watching her to see what she was going to do. Now it's more fluid. And yeah, like I said, you have all these interchangeable parts in the 4 guards and Madison Hayes and Zoe Brooks and Isaiah James and Sanaya Rivers, who can all kind of defend, and play 1 through 3, 1 through 4. You have Mimi Collins, who is, good enough as a shooter to stretch you out to 3, tough enough to hurt you inside and play as a small ball 5 when they go to that look. And then you have River Baldwin, who I think somewhat surprisingly, because it's her 5th season and we all sort of thought we knew who she was, I think she's taken a leap and she's allowed West to play that 4-out system with that one really dominant center that he likes to play. Now, she's not Elisa Cunane, but she's good enough for them to play that way. And I think a lot of us thought this was going to be another rebuilding year for State, but, they start the season off with that huge win over UConn in Reynolds Coliseum. That place was absolutely electric when that game happened. Then they beat Colorado later in the non-conference game, schedule. They beat Florida State in overtime. They only have one ACC loss right now. That was at Virginia Tech in front of a sold-out crowd without River Baldwin. Elizabeth Kitley hits a shot at the buzzer. Actually, they have 2 ACC losses because they did lose in Miami. I forgot about that one. But this NC State team is, as good as any other in the ACC, and they certainly have a chance to win the title. When you look at Carolina, I think this is a Carolina team that looks a lot different than it did last year. You still have Deja Kelly and Alyssa Utsby as your sort of co-bus drivers. Mm-hmm. Over the past month, I think they've started to figure themselves out a little bit. They've battled some injuries. Their guard depth is a little diminished with Kayla McPherson and Paulina Paris out. But I think for the first time in Courtney Banghart's tenure, they really have post depth for the first time. They get Maria Gokdang, who's a transfer from Boston College, who's a rim protector and somebody who can score in the post. She actually played really well in their loss against South Carolina, kind of gave Camilla Cardozo everything she can handle. Plus, they have a healthy Tiani He behind her. And then you have a veteran in Anya Poole who's been there for 4 seasons. Lexi Donarski is another transfer they got from Iowa State. She's kind of your typical 3-and-D player. She won the Big 12's Defensive Player of the Year award. It's a sophomore. Really good shooter from outside, kind of in that same role here, and often takes that assignment of guarding the top offensive perimeter player. Against Notre Dame, that was Hannah Hidalgo. Against Syracuse, Deja Fair. Third transfer they got, India Navarre, local kid from Apex who spent her freshman year at Stanford, comes here through the portal, and I think is starting to make the case for ACC 6th Player of the Year. Comes off the bench and really gives them a spark. Carolina doesn't win at Notre Dame without her. And then Renaya Kelly is a freshman from Alabama who they've had to start over the past few games and is really starting to come into her own as a playmaker, shooter from point guard. And then there's Deja Kelly and Alyssa Utsby, who have been with this program, part of Courtney Banghart's first recruiting class. You can make the case that Deja Kelly is the best player on this team in terms of what she gives you from a scoring and offensive and playmaking perspective. But I think Alyssa Utsby is the most important player, just when you talk about what she does in terms of scoring, rebounding, passing, defending. You can make the case that there's no other player in the country that does as much for her team as Utsby does for Carolina. And I think she's taken a leap. And for Carolina to win, she has to play well.
Mitchell, it feels like when these two teams play, the home team wins. Even when West was running hot and Courtney was kind of bringing this thing up. What should we expect to see Thursday, 8:00? My number one expectation is to see a really good crowd at the, what was it called? The small gym or the high school gym or whatever Courtney was trying to peddle that one year.
Yes, the Reynolds, which is just slightly smaller than Carmichael, I think by maybe 1,000 seats. But yeah, I think that's probably what you can expect this year too. I think both of these teams are competing at the top of the standings. I think both of them have what it takes to win the ACC, and I think you're probably going to see them split the regular season meetings. If I was if betting was legalized already in North Carolina. I guess it's legalized. It's just not
we're
live
almost
yet.
there. We're almost
It's
there.
not live yet. If I could go to my phone today, maybe that's the prediction I would make.
Well, I don't know, Joe. Are you going to your Bojangles in Virginia anytime soon, or are you just waiting?
Even though I do not believe in certain laws that apply to the Wolfpack women, Wes has certainly earned more respect than that. I still don't bet on anything NC State.
That's fair.
Matt Freege scarred me for life.
Oh, jeez. To get it back, what was that? 03, 04?
04.
04? Okay, jeez. Man, we're going damn near 20
I
years.
literally have not bet on or against NC State since 2004.
All right, so Mitch, we'll close the conversation on this because Joe brought up the gym, and I know Westmore this week brought up, I heard our fans are classless. I hope we're really classless on Thursday night. Like, Wes is in on it. He's throwing the red meat to NC State fans in the same way that I think Courtney Bangard is throwing red meat to Tar Heel fans. You're around these programs a heck of a lot more. Are they in on it? Like, is it a genuine thing, or are they playing it up because they know this is the kind of thing that draws people to the game?
I think it's a little bit of both. And I think that this kind of trash talk, especially when you talk about this rivalry in the triangle, which is so big in every sport. And I think you can make the case that women's basketball is like football, where NC State Carolina is kind of a little bit bigger than Duke Carolina, which is sort of the disappointment, I think, going forward, because after this season, Carolina and NC State are only going to play each other one time next year in the regular season, because we're getting
Jim Phillips
and SMU.
Yeah.
We're going to go the women's side. They play an 18-game schedule. So there's going to be 18 teams. So you're going to play everybody once, and then everybody's going to have that one protected rival they play twice. For Carolina, that's probably going to be Duke, most likely. So I think that's the bummer of sort of, what we're experiencing now, because I think Courtney and Wes both realize that, like, this is fun and it's supposed to be fun, and we can make these little jabs back and forth. Someone tried to make the comparison that Wes bringing up the classless comment, and again, that was almost 2 years ago now, was like Mac Brown talking about Dave Doran's locker room thing on signing day.
No,
I think it's totally different. Number one, signing day is supposed to be about uplifting your team. Two, this is just days before UNC State and state play, and Wes is trying to light up the fan base, although he doesn't need to because it's already sold out. But I appreciate that he is trying to play the game that way with the rivalry, and he is willing to sort of, liven up the conversation. And Courtney is too. I think she made the comment last year after the fallout from the classless thing, where she had to apologize and all that, that UNC and NC State game got flexed to ESPN. And I think maybe that was the reason why.
Mission accomplished.
A lot of back and forth there. So, I think women's basketball needs more of that. And I'm glad that at least two of the three triangle coaches are willing to play along in this way, because the other one seems to have no interest in doing that.
Carol Lawson at Duke is very interested in Carol Lawson at Duke. And that's fine. I mean, whatever's going to work for her.
Everybody has to run their own race.
Exactly. She has her T-shirts and her slogans, and everything is going well at Duke. That's fine. But to get the people going, I do love what Courtney Bangard and Westmore are doing, and obviously that's going to feed into it on Thursday night at Reynolds Coliseum. Mitch, we appreciate the time, man. NPR for the win, USA Today. And if you want more women's college basketball coverage, follow Mitch on social media. He's all over it. Thanks, man.
Thanks for having me.
Hanging out with us in studio for our ad break is Adam Cunningham, Longleaf Swine in downtown Raleigh. Adam, what up, man?
Thank you guys for having me. I greatly appreciate it.
Well, thanks for jumping on with what we're trying to do here.
We'd love to be a part of this. We love supporting local. I mean, Mark and I, when we first started out in like 2016, 2017 with the trailer, we listened to you and Adam. Like, you got us through all the traffic and ITB and the triangle and stuff like that. So we couldn't thank you guys enough.
Yeah, it's funny. I remember showing up to transfer, and Mark was there, the pitmaster Mark, if you're not familiar. And you guys were doing your thing and had the brisket. It was fantastic. I'm like, what's the deal? Like, we're getting ready to open up. And of course, it was an adventure, like all things. And Joe and I are figuring
man.
this out too, as the adventure to get there and get going. But you guys have been open. You guys have been going strong. And I think it's important to note with Longleaf Swine, people are going to think barbecue,
right? Which
you guys do really, really well. But I was telling you this the other day, and I was telling this to Joe. Don't sleep on the smash burgers. I asked you the other day.
Is it okay if we promote that? Because it's my favorite. It's my favorite
100%.
item.
What is in the smash burger?
It is just brisket trimmings that we take. So when we trim the briskets, we'll take all that, grind it up in the fresh ground beef, and be able to put it in 2-3.5 ounce patties and give it a nice char on there.
It's ridiculous.
It's not my 80-20 that I'm fooling around with, is what you're saying.
It's probably closer to 70-30, but that's probably why it's so good.
That's the good stuff, man.
But again, we pride ourselves in not having any waste.
Yeah.
So it's like that's what we use for the leftovers, for not leftovers, but trimmings from the beef, the pork. We get whole hogs in, and being able to take the heads and the trotters that goes into the collards and the Brunswick stew. So we pride ourselves on not wasting anything because we try to get everything as local as possible.
We pride ourselves on the best food in Raleigh. We have another winner here in the Longleaf Swine.
We try.
Wednesday through Sunday, you guys are on the corner of Edenton and Person, right there behind the Federal Post Office in downtown, and open for lunch at 11, and dinner is from 4 to 10. And now I'm excited to announce we will have the first Thursday of the NCAA tournament. We will bring the OG live to the unbelievable outdoor space at Longleaf Swine. Just tell us a little bit about the process of taking over the old place there, the Oakwood Cafe, and the vision that you had for that parking lot, because it's really the signature of the space. I think as unbelievable as the food is.
Thank you.
Having the space that you have and the idea really to do what you did there, that was truly a stroke of genius.
Well, it all happened because of COVID. Like that was the reason we couldn't get into transfer, and just stuff was timing and all this stuff. And I've always joked about it that it's like we fail upwards.
You're the Matt Canada.
Yes. NC State. Good God. Miss him so much. Just kidding. But we were supposed to go on a transfer. We thought it was a good next step going from there to the trailer. All that stuff didn't work out. And now I was running one day when we saw the landlord owner put the for sale for lease, call Ben. I was like, hey, how would you like to own a building in downtown Raleigh instead of just investing into a restaurant?
Yeah.
They're like, heck yeah, let's do this thing. 2.5 years later, it took us like a year and a half to close on the building. And then that's when all the supply chain stuff happened.
Yep.
Our steel for the outside patio, all those beams were on a shipping container somewhere in the middle of the ocean. Took 8 months to get here. So that put a lot of wear and tear on us mentally. Like it was a grind for that COVID. We did our best to do pop-ups at the restaurant, kind of the old Oakwood Cafe for a little bit. Then we moved over to our catering space to do more pop-ups, but we were just grinding all the way through. But then, everything happens for a reason. So I think the timing was perfect where people felt more comfortable sitting outside. And that's where we got if COVID happened again, you guys seen how tiny the indoor space is.
Yeah.
We wouldn't survive as a restaurant with taking away half the tables. And if you go back to all those restrictions, that's where we got especially the covered patio. There wasn't a lot of patio. There's a good amount of patio spaces in Raleigh, and especially downtown Raleigh, but there's none.
Not like that.
Not a lot of covered.
No, not like that.
But we got the design. I was watching Mad Men one day, rerun, and it was the last season when Don Draper drives out to California. And he stops by that 50s, 60s diner style. And I texted our architect. I was like, "Can we do this?" And he's like, "Yeah, but how much money do you have?"
Yeah, that's always the question. Of course we can. It just depends on your budget.
Looks beautiful, and
it does.
We're very proud of it. And now having the panels around it, thanks to Awning Works, they helped us out. They installed us about a month ago, and there's been a huge help to kind of block the wind because being downtown, it's always windy.
So when we do the live show for the first Thursday of the NCAA tournament, I guess we're not bound by FCC rules. Is it possible for us to give away Blanton shots?
I was going to say,
how does this work?
You have an amazing collection
of bourbons,
of Blantons in particular.
Yes, a couple bottles.
Right? There's 5 or 6 of them in there, including a gold, which I don't know anything about all these things.
I just learned about the gold actually.
So I don't want to break any rules, but I do want on that day to be able to give a 1 ounce pour,
You guys
right?
are
I can do
more
that.
than happy to purchase as much blands as you want.
Okay.
And then whoever you pass it out to,
That's okay. As long as they're
That's okay.
21.
yes,
Okay.
All right.
that's
All
on
right.
you.
We'll ID them.
Yeah.
And I know how to check an ID now after my summer at Walnut Creek. I'm
Yes,
very excited
yes,
about
you
that
do.
with Enlo marching band boosters.
Yeah. So you need to go in person to the Longleaf Swine. Again, Edenton person right there by the federal post office. Open for lunch at 11 o'clock, Wednesday through Sunday. And then dinners are 4 to 10. And we cannot let you get out of here, though. I don't know if I want you to tell us the recipe for the roasted sweet potatoes or if that like has to die with your family. Because
Super simple.
They're the best.
It is just, we bake them off in the oven, peel them, cube them up, flash fry them.
Mm-hmm.
Frying them is what brings the flavor out.
That's what brings it out.
Toss it with salt and a little bit of fresh thyme.
Yeah, and that's
Really?
that's the important thing.
The
If you have-
herb, yeah, it's just flash frying and getting that crunchiness, that texture, and then being able to put the goat cheese, the creaminess,
Okay. Yeah.
the agave for the sweetness, and a little bit of pepitas.
But do you
For a
put
little
them
bit of
like in
crunch.
the same oven as like the smoker? Or no?
I mean, they're in the oven. I mean, there's everything goes through that oven.
Okay.
It's not in the actual smoker.
Okay.
But it's even if I'm come home from work and I'm not even near the smoke room, I still smell like
yeah,
smoke.
it's still going to smell like it. But that's the important takeaway. People are going to think, oh, it's a barbecue joint. It's way more than that. You
Right.
guys have specials all the time. I remember I asked when I was there the other day, where's the BLT? Me being the idiot. I'm like, well, it's not summertime, so it's not BLT summertime. But I remember that BLT. It's so freaking good. You guys even do your, I've seen fish fries. I've
Yep.
seen all sorts of guys. You guys are doing specials all the time.
Yeah, we do specials. Fridays, local fish fry. Saturday, there's smoked and fried wings, which you
Mhm.
guys, I don't think you've had.
I've had those.
I have not had
That's
the
my
wings
favorite
yet.
thing on the menu is the wings.
Yeah, the
'cause we-
wings.
different types of sauce, and we just started doing an Alabama white sauce as well.
Oh, I haven't had the Alabama white sauce
which is
yet.
my favorite.
Okay.
I don't need blue cheese. I'm a blue cheese guy, but you don't need to put blue cheese or ranch on those. You can eat them plain.
All right.
They're amazing.
And we'll get out of here on this. Slaw.
I mean, that's like a whole nother episode. I think.
Yeah,
have
how
to
much
talk-
time you have?
have to talk about slaw. Actually, maybe that's a tease for your next appearance.
Mhm.
We can talk about slaw. People are very opinionated about slaw, but I will say that your slaw is not overly dressed. This is an important distinction.
Right. It's a palate cleanser.
Perfect.
And I'd love to get Chris Bullard on the podcast to debate us on this one.
Only if Bullard shows up in his truck with his faded signatures.
Leslie,
CJ
CJ
Leslie and
Oh,
Ryan
no.
Harrow and that whole
Yes.
crew. That's the
I
only
remember
thing.
that day. I was there.
You were there for that day?
Oh yeah.
Oh
was
man,
chaos.
that's its own like 30 for 30 type episode. We've been joking around about doing
Yeah.
one-off episodes in the
Yeah.
summer about like remember when.
Yeah.
That might be one of them. That might be one of them. That was a bonkers day at the Triangle. Adam, man, appreciate it. We're looking
Thank you,
forward to
guys.
hanging out at Longleaf.
Yeah, mark the calendar.
Mark the
Thursday,
calendar.
Yeah.
Thursday, March 21st, we'll do the OG live from the Longleaf Swine, and you can always go check them out on Edenton in person. And yeah, get the smash burger.
We're going to talk about slaw that day.
Perfect.
So we were at the NC State Miami game last night, and before tip-off, we saw the OG, Hayes himself, Hayes Lancaster.
Our whole crew was there.
They
last
were
night.
all there last night.
Yeah, no, the OG is Hayes Lancaster. There is no OG media without him. So do us a favor, support him. What our super listener Troy did, he said, "Hey man, you guys weren't kidding about the moisture barrier, 360 moisture barrier,
Mhm.
protect you from that mold and mildew at your house. Maybe you do have ants or the termite protection service. There's a lot of deals that you can have from Mosquito Authority, Pest Authority. All you got to do is go to bugsbite.com because the OG doesn't believe in contracts, but he does believe in saving you money."
Also, big thanks to Butcher's Market. We're going to be doing the show live from the new Butcher's Market, Lake Boone Shopping Plaza, 2:00 Thursday. Be there. Eat steak and cheeses while we do a podcast, man. Who can ask for more? We actually had a listener saying, hey, got those chicken meatballs. Money.
I saw that was last night in the Law of the Wolf After Dark.
Yes.
That person was dedicated.
I love that. I absolutely love that. So head on over to Butcher's Market, and more importantly, go see us when we head out to Butcher's Market to do the show 2:00 with our Sleek Fleet OG Live.
Yeah, Lake Boone Shopping Center, new spot. They don't have beer yet, but they do have the sandwiches.
I'll survive.
They do have all of the sides. The tortellini salad has now become my go-to side. I don't know how, but it hits the spot every time.
Joining us on the Easter Automotive Group hotline, he's the head coach, App State. They are crushing it right now. He is Dustin Kerns. Coach, thanks for coming on.
Hey, it's great to be on here.
All right, Joe, do you want to?
Yeah, I mean,
do you want to scold me? You want to start out just right out of the gate?
It's rare, Coach, where I'm normally the bad guy, and that's a role. Joe's the good cop. I'm the bad cop. I just want to tell you that where we record in downtown Raleigh is on the second floor, and every day I walk up the steps to this room. However, Joe Ovius takes the elevator every day.
Yeah, I don't take the stairs.
We got to change that. We got to change that mindset. We got to change the approach. Yeah, absolutely. We do not want to take the easy route.
That is the goal. That is the talking point. Now I'm curious. When did you get hip to that? When did the take the stairs mentality lock for you, and how you've now gotten here at App State and turned things around?
So right before I became the head coach at Presbyterian, which you never really know when you're become a head coach, it's just, the coaching thing, so I was associate head coach at Wofford. And I had read a book called Take the Stairs by Rory Vaden. And it's a great book, and it just really hit home with me. I thought with my coaching journey, and I just felt like when you become a head coach, maybe there's, you want to come up with a team mantra, things like that. Well, a month later after that, I became the head coach of Presbyterian. I talk about that in my press conference. It just kind of stuck. Presbyterian, it took off. People got into it, became the head coach of App State, brought it here. Mm-hmm. But just like fight songs or school colors or mascots, we're not there's a Missouri soccer. I think there's another couple basketball team. Like there's other stuff that, but for us, it's certainly taken off with our fan base, and it just started from day one at Presbyterian.
Certainly there's a whole lot of basketball left on the season, but being 17-4 after going 16-16 last year, and now sweeping James Madison this season, the team who had been the tops in the Sun Belt, it's got to feel pretty surreal for you right now to see where you guys are, and again, a lot of basketball left, but it just got to feel like you're onto something there.
Yeah, and I think that so when we got here 5 years ago, App State had 8 straight losing seasons in basketball, which is a lot. Eight's a long time, right? So we won 18 in year one. So people were excited we just won. Year two, we go to the NCAA tournament for the third time in school history. So now it's like they went from just excited we won to an expectation to win. Year three, we finished second in the regular season, which is the highest finish ever. Year four, the season you talked about, we graduated a lot of people, but we had a Power 5 win, first in 8 years. And now year five, we keep taking more stairs, hosting national television games, beat another Power 5 with Auburn. And so we keep taking some stairs each season. But certainly this group, we've just got a really good group that's connected and playing real well together. And, I do feel this way, that in 2024 with the transfer portal and all this stuff, just having a team, a group of people that really care for one another and truly are a team is a competitive advantage. And we have a great team.
And it hasn't been, just looking at the numbers, Coach, and looking at the roster, these are your guys. This isn't like you went out and got somebody.
Yeah, we retained a lot of guys. We've done it still with high school kids. So of our 13 scholarship players, 12 of our 13 chose App State for the first time. And we're proud of that.
And that's what I was curious about.
How's that even possible?
How is that possible?
2024?
Because every coach we talk to, and most of the coaches that we talk to are in the ACC, there is it's in flux. You don't know what the roster is going to look like from year to year. You'll get a surprise here and there, and you're just rebuilding all the time. Some coaches, they get it. Some coaches hate it. How is this happening? How are you making this work?
Yeah, and I think that, like you all said, kind of year to year, right? For us, this past year, we retained our top 6 players. And I think it goes back to who they are as people, how they were raised. They have wonderful parents that just have perspective on big picture stuff. And I think it says they love App State University. They love going to school here. They love this community. They love how they're treated. This is a big time, college environment, especially sports wise. And I think they like how they're coached and developed. And we just hit on the right people that said, you know what, we're all going to come back. And we sprinkle in a junior college kid, we sprinkle in one transfer from Butler, and then we sprinkle in high school kids, which is we've been consistent with that. But we still want to recruit and develop high school kids. For us, it's just about getting the right talent. And that's my point earlier. I think that some places you just assemble a group of people, but we have a true team, and I think that that's a big reason why we're having success right now.
I want to go back on two things. First of all, you mentioned the win over Auburn. How did you get Auburn up to Boone?
Well, I credit Bruce Pearl for that. Okay. So, long story short, COVID year, which scheduling and everything was crazy. We had an opening before Christmas. They had an opening. And I remember sitting at my computer and I just responded, "Hey, we have that date open. Would you do a 2-for-1?" I mean, an hour later, we got a contract.
Smart man.
That's smart.
So it was, hey, we've got to take a couple years off. But yes, now credit Bruce Pearl. He's done that with mid-majors. And so we were able to get them to come up. And I thought it was perfect timing. A Sunday after football, gets it on ESPN2. Start like so many things were great about that moment. And fortunately, we were able to play really well and win against a really good team. Until last week, they hadn't lost since our game.
Mm-hmm. And the other thing I want to go back on, because as people on this program know that you probably don't, that Mike Young is one of my favorite coaches in all of college basketball. So I need to
with him.
you need to tell me a Mike Young story.
Golly, I spent 7 years with him. I got a lot of good ones there. I think some of my best Mike Young stories that people enjoy is what he names plays. So he's really creative and unique, and because he wanted our players to remember it. So we had plays called ham sandwich, bologna, cigar.
He has an affinity for popcorn.
He likes popcorn. That was very true when I was with him too. He'd always go get popcorn. But yeah, the play names. So we were playing a national TV game once, and they had a camera in the locker room, and he's got on the board some of our play names. One of them was ham sandwich, and I got several texts after the game. It was like, "You guys have a play called ham sandwich?" And I'm like, "Yeah, we got one called bologna, and we got one called." And so like those are some of the fun. But you know what? You know what I did learn from him? Players don't forget those plays. At the end of the day, do your players retain it? And because of those names, like they're so kind of outrageous that players remember them.
No Zion.
What a great person and unbelievable coach.
No Zion Williamson story? Because could have gone to Wofford.
So I was there during then. I've got a picture on my phone of Zion on his unofficial visit. He came to a game. You know what was cool? So Zion and his family were right in town. We were his first offer. And so when we were building the Jerry Richardson Indoor Stadium, which is now complete, but we had Zion and his family over for an unofficial visit. And we put in the practice facility in the Jerry Indoor Stadium. Somehow we fit a projector screen to fit the entire wall. It was not complete yet, but it was to the point we could walk people through and wear like a hard hat and all that stuff. So we put a projector screen on the entire wall of basically an arena. And our video guy one of our coaches did a video of LeBron James going back to Cleveland and LeBron's voice about staying home and how much it meant for him to do that for the city of Cleveland. And so we played this video, LeBron talking about that, and then we showed a bunch of Zion highlights. It was awesome. And he was fired up. And for that 2 minutes, I think he thought about and then I think he thought about going to Duke or something like that. But like for 2 minutes, I think he thought, you know what?
Yeah, you know what?
That is kind of a cool story that I could do what LeBron did.
I like this spot. This is good. I don't have to go too far. And here, I remember talking to Mike Young about Zion and, you know, what he was as a prospect versus what he actually was at Duke. And I think to this day, I'm still surprised that I watched Zion Williamson do the things that he did at Cameron Indoor Stadium.
Yeah, he's an unbelievable athlete.
Mm-hmm.
Incredible in his strength. But you know what? Great kid. You know, wish him the best and his family. And it was neat to have them on campus a few times. He came to a game his senior year, and we packed it out. We were playing Chattanooga at home. We packed it out just, I think, because he was there. And everybody was there to see him, which special player.
For a coach that wants everyone to take the stairs, how do you keep your team climbing here after the most recent win over James Madison puts you guys in first place in the conference, which, if I'm following your math correctly, hasn't been done yet by the Mountaineers?
Yeah, so I think it's just it's easier said than done. But like, I just think that one thing that we've talked about is truly staying in the moment. Like, it's easy to jump ahead and think about this or that and the other. The hard thing to do, to take the stairs way, is to stay in the moment and take a day at a time. And we're just hammering that message right now that, listen, and we already practiced today. It's what really matters is today and practice and can we get better today? And we'll worry about tomorrow, but just staying in the moment, staying in the present. And because now we know that the position we're in, we're going to get blue outs and white outs and red outs and all these things. And so we've got to be able to handle that, accept that challenges, and use it as motivation. But while we do that, stand in the moment.
Dustin Kerns, head coach, App State. They've had a hell of a year, and it's not over. There's still plenty of basketball to go, so I'm really curious to see where things are going. We're going to have to get you back on when everything is all said and done and see how the season went. And I will start taking the stairs. I will start taking the stairs.
Let me know if he's you know, send me a pic when he's taking the stairs.
I will.
Also, be on here. You guys do an awesome job, and I'm very humbled to be on here. Anytime you want me on, I'm on.
All right. Well, I have your email now, so be on the lookout for that. But there is something we do need to wrap up before we go, because before you came on, you were checking out the backgrounds of what we have here in our little studio. You know,
hey, you got us, man. You got us.
We got pennants. We got all sorts of stuff. I got an old record from I think that's from 1974. I got all sorts of stuff, right? I don't have any App State stuff. Even though I was just up in Boone, I don't have any App State stuff. Can we get something?
We're going to change that. It'll be something in the mail today.
All right. I'll send you the address.
Sounds good.
All right, Coach. Appreciate it.
Thank y'all. Go Mountaineers. Take the stairs.
All right, let's get out of here with some Hey Joe questions. We have a response from Chris. I guess he caught the opening of yesterday's show discussing bass levels of our voices. Okay. I think we got a little bit of a mistake here. He actually sent us a video of his Amazon Echo. He's like, regarding the bassiness, I listen on Spotify, but my Spotify is connected to my Amazon Echo. When I listen through the Echo, the show is very bassy. Other shows sound fine, and yours sounds fine when I listen on Spotify on my phone. It's been like this for the last 2 months. I'm like, okay, cool. He's sending me evidence. You know I love this.
Yes.
This is catnip for me.
There's a tingle. Yeah.
Let's see.
Not sure where this is going. And a listener DM me, asked me about audio. Like, hey, I've noticed with your podcast, like it's not as bassy as others that I listen to. Now, what do you think that did to me?
Okay. First off, I think we got to the heart of the problem.
Like Will Ferrell with the trank dart.
I got hit with a trank dart. I guess there's some sort of error that's transferring your Spotify podcast to Echo, and it's being played at 3/4 speed, half speed. That's not 1x, man. It's not 1x.
You're a man of the people, Joe Ovius, solving problems.
If you could try to troubleshoot that, we might sound normal again on your Echo device. And I'm not going to spend too much time on this, but let's follow up on our conversation about Florida State smartly bringing up John Swofford, Chad Swofford, Raycom, and whether or not that was bad business dealings.
Negotiating a price is what they're trying to do.
Incredibly smart of Florida State to do that. I had a couple Florida State fans.
Why are they mad at us now?
Getting in our mention saying,
oh, they got the wrong tag.
Well, yeah, they did get the wrong. Poor Philly Joe. Like, what's this all about?
I know.
So he sends us, this is guy Bandit, 1977. He's a Florida State fan, and my mentions plenty. It's whatever. He sends me this old post from August 3rd, 2023. North Carolina AD, Bubba Cunningham slams FSU for barking about leaving ACC. That was an interview that Bubba had done with Adam Gold. Okay, cool. What does that have to do with anything? So I scroll up. I'm like, oh, what's this about? Inside Carolina. UNC Board of Trustees Chair John Pryor offered his thoughts on realignment, financial challenges, and the Board of Governors policy change. Quote, I think that we all need to just realize that it's a new day in college athletics. He goes on about how if North Carolina is going to stay competitive, they have to look at these financials and be in position for whatever's going to happen next. And what I found interesting, because there was a couple of these comments on YouTube as well as I broke out our conversation about Florida State and the ACC that were like, well, you going to bring that heat? You going to bring that heat on UNC for saying this? These aren't the same things. Like, there's actual context to these conversations with the Board of Trustees and what they're talking about. A Board of Trustees chair talking about North Carolina situation is in relation to a recent government change that affects how realignment will happen in this state. And also, some things have changed since Florida State decided to go after the ACC. We kind of can tell where this is going. You and I both agree. And if you've been listening to us, hopefully you get the earwax out of your ear. I'll say it much more plainly. It's over. I don't know how many ways we can say this. We get it. It's over. The question is, how is it going to end, and what is the aftermath of that ending? When Florida State did this lawsuit against the ACC, however many weeks ago it was, back in December, you and I both agreed and discussed how this simply starts the process. We don't know how long that process is going to take, but we know it's over. And right now it's coming down to what is the magic monetary number that will make everybody happy, and then everybody can move on with their lives. It's a wrap. So now that we know it's a wrap, they know it's a wrap. So every school, I mean, why do you think the Board of Trustees or the Board of Governors or whatever the UNC
I'm going to need a flow chart on that one.
There's so many BOTs, man. It's crazy. More bots than Twitter. So I find it interesting that this is somehow being equated as a 1-for-1 for Florida State. No, Florida State has gone full message board this entire time.
Now down to the Chad Swofford conspiracy theory.
Right down to that.
Yes.
We're a couple weeks away from John Swofford favored North Carolina because he was the North Carolina AD and he played football there, so he's always looking out for North Carolina. I wouldn't be shocked if Clemson brings up, remember when John Swofford wanted to stick it to Clemson and Danny Ford? We're not that far away from this. This is all part of the process going forward. So don't try to come at us like, oh, well, UNC's doing the same thing. They're not, because real G's move in silence. North Carolina, Bubba Cunningham have been very upfront about this entire process the entire time. What North Carolina isn't doing is performative Zoom calls with their Board of Trustees to get the message boards going and get Drew Weatherford high fives as he's leaving the Board of Trustees.
They need to get TJ Yates on the Board of Governors.
Come on, man. Get Marquise Williams out there to be like, upside down you, we're out. Peace, Miami, because you're not coming with us. That's what that's about. Anyway, that's going to wrap it up for today's show. We will see you Thursday live from the Butcher's Market. Let's go.